Welcome to the Joe Verdi program, How to Follow Up and Prospect. In this series, Joe is going to talk with you about how you can sell more cars, increase gross, and ensure your success in today's competitive market. With this tape, let's review how you can get the most out of your class with Joe. First, if you're serious about selling more cars, take good notes. If everyone doesn't have a pencil and paper, pause the tape now and get them. Second, let everyone else at the dealership know you're serious about your sales training class. Ask your receptionist to take messages. And hang a do not disturb sign on the door if you have to. Joe's going to cover a lot of information, and he's going to cover it quickly. So hold your questions and comments until the end of this segment or until your manager stops the tape. And now, here's Joe.
Well, you guys overwhelmed yet? Welcome back. My general manager came up to me at the break there and said that she thought you might be having anxiety pangs here about now because we covered so much information, we covered so fast. And we have. We've talked about prospecting in person, by mail, by phone. We talked about putting that list of people together. We talked about prospecting to that local group down there, giving a speech. We talked about meeting people in service, calling people on the phone, calling service customers, calling orphan owners, calling sold customers. Let's take all of this broad information we've talked about and let's narrow it down and see if we can't come up with a plan. Because we have covered an awful lot and you need to set up a system to handle this. Now put some things on the board here at the break. Let's break this down and keep it simple. And don't read the, all right, go ahead and look at the whole thing so you can go ahead and follow me in a second. I know you're going to do that anyway. All right, what we're talking about here is prospecting. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I've been talking about making lists, and we've talked about it and talked about it. Now you need a list of people you want to call or mail to, phone, and meet in person. Now let's keep this simple. Let's narrow it down to some, I keep saying, find the easiest group to work with first. So let's look at just mail here. I believe friends and acquaintances would be a very easy group to work with. Now, again, 2 or 3 tapes ago, we talked about putting these lists together. You should have a list of your friends and acquaintances. We talked about gathering a list of these leased people, these orphan owners, service customers, things like that. I would certainly by mail contact my friends and acquaintances and my orphan owners. Now, I said mail out 5 cards and letters a day, postcards preferably, to these different people. Now, the lease list, there's a couple of ways you can work it. We talked about mailing out 1,000. You get 20 responses. From the responses, you work them accordingly. I would do that. I would work the 1,000 and I'd go for the 20 responses, but I would also keep working the list. I wouldn't stop after that first time. First time with a postcard, we purged the list. Now we know everybody on the list has got the right address and the right phone number because we didn't get the mail out back. I would also start working that with my 5 a day that I was going to follow up with by phone. So we're mailing 5 of these a day, 5 of these a day, and orphan owners, and we're also working that other list separately. Is that clear as mud? Hopefully that's clear. So pick some easy groups by mail, and you might pick different groups, but I would start with friends and acquaintances. They're a piece of cake. Orphan owners, there's a ton of them. And my lease expiration list. And I would, again, work those 2 ways. One the 5 a day, and the one work the whole 1,000 or 200 or 150, whatever's on the list. Now, logically, let's see how this moves this way. By phone, I've got to prospect to follow up on these 5. So I'm going to call my friend that was on the list. I'm going to call the orphan owner that was on the list. I'm going to call the guy that I sent the note to. And to all of these people, it's going to be, hi, this is Joe. I sent you a note about a week ago, and I just wanted to touch base and make sure you got it. If it's a friend, you say something different after that. The lease expiration, the orphan owner, you say something different. But you're going to be following up to 5 people a day from the cards and letters that you mailed out a week ago. We're clear on that? Okay, now you're also, from all of these things, you're going to get some referrals and responses. From just mailing these things out, some people are going to call. That's the response. From prospecting in person, you're prospecting in service. How many drivers, vehicles of the drivers who's next? My son. Now you've got some referrals. So you're going to be doing some telephone prospecting, the referrals and the responses. And then I would pick one other easy group. And pick the group. What's the easiest group? If you're involved in the church, if you're involved in the Little League, if you're involved in the PTA, the group that you know the best. And what would you say to these guys? If I was calling this group, let's say it's the people in the PTA and I'm involved in it, or the Lions Club. It doesn't matter what the group is. Just call, and you could use we were doing a survey. Just call and say, hi, this is Joe. It's been a while since I talked to you. Visit about the Little League game the other day. And our manager had asked us to do a little survey, and we were trying to figure out how many vehicles and stuff people have. How many cars do you guys have? I've never asked. Well, we've got 3. And how many drivers are in your family? Well, we've got 4. And of the drivers in your family, who's going to be next in line for a new used car? Well, I guess that'd be Sam. You got to be kidding. Like you never expected a referral. You got to be kidding. I never thought I'd actually get a referral out of this. Sam, is he leaning toward new or used? Probably new. Is it going to be pretty soon or down the road? Well, it's probably going to be a few months. Well, that's great. You know, and I never thought about it, but I guess I probably ought to stay in touch, send you guys some information on our products. You know, we had a lot of changes, and you're going to have a lot of questions as you get closer. Is that going to be all right? Oh, sure. And then we put them on our master list. Whatever happens out of this, from all of this, you're going to sell some and some you won't. From that, they go in your master list, and from that, you do ongoing follow-up. So we've got the 5 phone calls that we have to make. You're going to have some referrals and responses from this, so you need to call those. And you're going to call one easy group. Pick your easiest group. Let's keep this simple. In person, I would certainly hit the service drive. It's sitting out there and nobody's talking to them. There are happy customers out there waiting for a ride every day. All you got to do is go talk to 3 or 4 or 5 of them a day. Down the street, if you stop at 7-Eleven every morning, just pick a place where you do business with, where you're constantly in and out of their shop or their company or the gas station or whatever it is. Just make a list of the people you know down the street, and then pick another easy group that you can talk to in person. Maybe it's the church group. And next time you're at church, talk about doing a little survey. We're doing a little survey in our dealership about people in our community and how many cars they have and all that stuff. And just wanted to ask how many drivers, vehicles of the drivers who's next. And you're certainly, I've got sold customers in parentheses. You're going to call the sold customers. Remember, you're going to ask them on delivery. You're going to ask them on that first call. You're going to ask them at work. Who at work when you start showing this thing off seem most excited. So you're always, all of this is prospecting and referral prospecting. You're letting them know who you are, what you do, where you work. Now you're letting them know who you are and what you do and where you work, and if you get a chance, you're going to ask for referrals on every one of these. And I hope this doesn't seem difficult. It's just getting it organized one time. Make your lists. When this tape is over, if you haven't already done it, write mail, phone, and person, and make a list of the 3 groups that you're going to send something 5 mail-outs a day to, call 5 people a day, plus work the referrals and responses, and pick an easy group to start working through. Service drive down the street, and one easy group over here, and of course your sold customers. Remember that whatever happens here, some you're going to sell, some you don't. Either way, they all end up in your master list, and you're going to follow up. In the tape after this one, we're going to talk about how to follow up every group of person that you've talked to, whether you sold them or didn't sell them. Does this kind of clear that up? Managers in the room, after this tape is over, sit down with these guys and go over this. This is really important that we start narrowing this down. We're winding down toward the end of the series, and we need to start building on these lists and these scripts. Now you have to learn some scripts. You're going to need a script for these phone calls. Those are in the book. You need to practice, drill them, and rehearse them. You're going to need the script on how to ask for referrals. And the good news is that same script works in service. It works on the telephone. It works when you're down at the gas station. How many drivers, how many vehicles of the drivers who's next? When they say, my son, pretty soon or down the road. Down the road, and you say down the road. A few weeks, few months, or more like a year or 2. Well, it's going to be probably a few months. And is it leaning toward new or used? You want to do some light investigation, not a drill. It doesn't sound like interrogation. It's investigation instead. You need that information so that you can say, gosh, what I'd like to do is stay in touch. I'm going to have a lot of questions. I'll send a brochure or 2. Is that okay? Sure, it's okay. Or I'll call you when that perfect little used car comes in. Is that all right? Sure, it's all right. Practice, drill, and rehearse the scripts. We're not talking about dozens and dozens of scripts. We're talking about probably a handful, half a dozen. You get the half a dozen scripts down, you can do all of this stuff. Get your basic system down, you can do all of this stuff. In fact, let's talk about setting up your system. Page 60 in your workbook. Grab your workbook, turn to page 60. And if you have any questions on this, check with your manager. I tried to plan in every question that I think people are going to have from our 3-day class. We covered this, or most of this. We actually covered a little bit more here than we're able to cover in class because I get to talk faster and for longer on a tape. Let's talk about why to follow up. Let's talk about the groups. Then let's talk about setting up a follow-up system. And there's 3 different ways you're going to set it up. You're going to use a card file, you're going to use a planner, or you're going to use a computer. In fact, you're going to need to use a little bit of all 3. On page 60, first thing on page 60 at the top of the page, the purpose of follow-up. Well, prospecting is making that initial contact, and follow-up is just what? We made the initial contact by phone, by mail, or in person, and then we said follow-up. So prospecting is the initial contact, follow-up is every contact after that. Just like if I go over to the gas station and meet the guy over there and say, hi, my name's Joe, I work across the street. The first time I meet him, that's called prospecting. If I honk and wave next time I go by, that's called follow-up. If I sell you a car today, and I call you after the sale, that's called follow-up. If I don't sell you a car today and you leave and I call you back 20 minutes later, that's called follow-up. When I send you my newsletter, that's called follow-up. Now, I may ask for referrals and I may do some prospecting in a mail-out that is technically follow-up. All this starts to kind of blend, and you're doing a little bit of both at the same time. It's just like the mail, by phone, and person. All works together with a single prospect. So, again, slow this down in your thinking. Our goal is to prospect and make a contact, and our goal is to follow up every contact. We want them in our master list. Number 2 down here, we want to meet all these people so that we can guarantee future sales. You want to follow up so that you can guarantee future sales. Our goal is to build that follow-up list, that master list. We want our master list, when it first starts out, it may only be this big. But as we keep adding people, remember, we've got walk-in traffic, we've got people that we sell a car to, we've got our friends and acquaintances, we've got those lists of the other people, we've got our referral prospecting out here, we've got the people that we met at the auto show and the tent sale, we've got the people we met out in service. We're going to get names and numbers, and from all of these groups, we're going to add them to this master list. Everywhere we go and find a person, we're going to add it to the list, so the list grows. And the longer I'm in sales, the more the list grows, and it keeps growing. And the bigger this list gets. It's kind of like a money machine. This thing's going to crank out every time you mail something, and you're going to mail it every 45 days. This thing cranks out responses, and then you get a response. You mail out your newsletter, somebody calls and says, I need a car. Or people just call off your list. Now, some responses you'll sell, and some you won't, just like before. But either way, they go back in your list, and you leave them in there until they say, get me off the list, or until the post office won't deliver to them anymore. What you want this list to do is grow through your best contacts. Now, later on, as this thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you'll probably be a little pickier about who you put in your list. And that's kind of the nice thing about not relying on walk-in traffic. If I really didn't get along with this guy, I'm not putting him in my list. There's no point. Why would I want to put somebody in there that we just didn't hit it off? You hit it off with so many people, it's okay not to put the ones that you don't want to work with in there. Now, remember that we're eliminating most of the walk-in customers because we're not going to have time to talk to them. If you can see, if you were doing all this other stuff, this group may start out as the big group in the beginning because you talk to a lot of them, but after a while that shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and now you just don't have any time for these guys. You don't have time to talk to a 12%er when all of these others are in the 50% plus range. We would like to get rid of this group. And don't go back and say to your dealer, Joe said I shouldn't take any more ups. I did not say that. I said work your way out of the need to take more. And your dealer, your manager won't mind when you don't have time to talk to the walk-in traffic. They'll hire somebody else, they'll put them out on the lot, and they'll talk to the walk-in customers. I hope you see, though, that the whole idea behind this is to build your master list. Let's get this thing as big as we can with people that like us, trust us, and respect us. On the next page, the key to follow-up is the same as the key to advertising. We talked about advertising before. Follow-up is advertising. Since follow-up is advertising, the key to effective follow-up is repetition. And that's why we send the mail-outs every 45 days. Now, if you just stop and think about this, people buy cars, give or take. In fact, let me show you another one of those little common sense things I don't think we talked about. New car buyers, used car buyers. New car buyers buy a car, give or take, about every 4 years. Used car buyers buy them about every 2 years, give or take. Your gross is normally higher on which group? Should be as high on both, but most dealers tell us that their gross is a little higher on this one than it is on this one. Which of these would be the hottest, or neither one of them is a bad prospect, for lack of a better word, though, which is the best prospect? The one who buys twice as often and who pays you more. Who do you do no follow-up with? Oh, your best prospect. This one we treat like a second-class citizen. We don't even fill the tank. Even though this car, we can sell a used car for $20,000, and we'll send them out on E, and we sell a new car for $7,500, and we fill it. We might sell a $7,500 car that we made nothing on, but we're going to do that follow-up because the manufacturer twisted our arm for CSI. The real CSI, I don't know if you guys have figured this out, your CSI score, your percentage, your 95% or whatever it is, that's good, and you got to do it because you have to do it to get more cars and buy more dealerships and to keep your job in sales. But CSI is really based on repeat business. If you've got 20% of your customer base coming from repeat customers, you have a very low CSI. That means we're not satisfying our customers long term. Our CSI is really tied to our repeat customer sales. But here's just another example of people that we don't follow up with, and that doesn't make sense. That used car buyer can become one of your best customers. When we talk about repetition, though, if I'm going to send somebody something every 45 days, I believe there's 9 of those 45-day periods in a year. So I'm going to contact them 9 times a year, times 4 years. Typical new car buyer, 4 times 9 is 36. 36 times going to run me about 50 cents per mail out. It's going to take me about 3 seconds per mail out to put a mailing label on it and send them my newsletter. So I'm going to invest $18 if we're counting all my follow-up calls. And if I call them 3 times a year, 3 to 4 times a year, 4 times a year times 4 years, I've made 16 phone calls, 5-minute phone calls. 6 times 5 is 30, 5 times 1 is 5 and 8. I've invested about an hour and 20 minutes in total telephone time over 4 years, and I've invested $18 plus the phone calls. Your typical walk-in customer, you're spending about $300 to get a typical walk-in customer with a 12% closing ratio in there, and we're talking about spending maybe $30 here total to get a customer who closes at 80+%, a repeat customer, or somebody on your list, 50 to 80%. It doesn't make sense to do it the old way. Here's where the money's at, not up here. So the repetition, and the repetition of hearing from you, and the repetition of seeing your newsletter in the mail, after a while yours is the only name they think of in the car business when they want or need a car. Now at the bottom of the page there's really only 4 groups you got to follow up with, so let's keep this simple too. You don't have to follow up everybody in America. There's 4 groups you need to stay in touch with. The bottom of the page on page 61, 4A, friends and acquaintances. You need to stay in touch with your friends and acquaintances. They definitely need to go on your master list. Going to hear from you 9 times a year, and we need to talk to them by phone, and we'll talk about the schedule on the phone calls. Your sold customers, we definitely want to stay in touch with them. And I'm going to lay out on the next tape how I contacted my sold customers. And if I sold you a car today, you heard from me 17 or 18 times in the next 12 months. And I don't know if that sounds excessive, but it does fit in that repetition part up above. I don't know if it sounds difficult, but I'll show you how to do it in 5 minutes or less. We're going to keep this simple, we're going to keep it easy, and we're going to end up with an easy-to-use follow-up system that works. Not some follow-up factory system that doesn't work very often, and not somebody doing your follow-up for you and you getting piddly results. We're talking about you getting serious results from a quick and easy program. See your working prospects. Working prospects means the unsold prospect, the guy who just left. There's a 90% chance he's going to buy a car within a week. 78% of them are going to buy a car, 90% are going to buy it within a week. So that's a hot prospect. You definitely want to stay in touch with your working prospect. And you're going to use a different system for that. D, we would call these the inactive prospects. These are people between purchases that are just on your ongoing mailing list. Or people that you met, your friends and acquaintances, or that doctor that you go to that you put on your mailing list. That would be an inactive prospect, still a good prospect. Now, somebody in class the other day said, well, geez, that's everybody. It is everybody, but only everybody of the people that you know, and that's the good news. And as you know more people, you want to add them to your list, and your list grows and grows and grows, and that's the whole idea. And you guys got it made. Almost all of your dealers will pay for your mail-outs, they'll pay for your printing, they'll pay for everything. And they get the biggest return on it, so I'm glad that they do. I had to pay for my own. And it took a leap of faith for me to invest that first mail out and spend that money on the printing and the mail and the postage and everything else. But boy, do these things work. Does anybody in your watching this do a newsletter? Now, I've never asked this in class and got a no. Does anybody do a newsletter? And some of you sit there and watch this one guy in your dealership do a newsletter, and you watch him sell cars from him. Do you get a response every time you do a newsletter? Either a sale or you get somebody to respond and they call you about something else. I never met a person that did a newsletter with any number of people on a master list. With 20, it's not going to work very well. I never met anybody that mailed out a newsletter that didn't sell cars from doing it. So, hello, how about the rest of you doing a newsletter? If you mail it out, you get a return. If you don't mail it out, you don't get a return. And that's what we're talking about repetition. The secret is repetition. Don't try to guess who on your list is going to buy from you. That doesn't work. I got some of my best prospects from people that I didn't sell a car to. You can't guess who your best prospect is standing in front of you, and you can't guess who's going to become your best prospect. That's why you work the list all the time with all the people. And a lot of them are going to surprise you. Setting up a system on page 62. Setting up a system on page 62. Now we're going to walk our way through a 3x5 card system. We're going to walk it through a planner, and we'll walk it through a computer system and setting one up. And I'll give you some hints on buying a computer if you're going to go out and get one. From our little informal surveys in our classes, it seems like about 30% of the people in sales right now have a personal computer of their own, and they use it to help them do some of their follow-up. That's great. That's one of the most effective ways to do the mass mailouts, the master list. And we'll talk about setting all these up. You're going to need that telephone and that little 3x5 card file there for your working prospects, your ongoing follow-up. You're going to need a planner for appointments and to-dos, and you're going to need a computer to manage all these names. I know a lot of people try to sit down and handwrite 1,000 addresses. Yeah, you can, and it may technically be slightly better than putting a mailing label on it, but it'll take you months to handwrite 1,000 envelopes. If you do 10 a day, that's 300 a month. It'll take you 90 days just to almost do your 1,000. That doesn't make sense. Do a mailing label instead. Even if the handwritten got you slightly better response, the numbers override that because now you get a greater number of mailouts out. So you need to learn to do some things, and even in the computer, we talked about cheating. Buy that font in your handwriting if you want to handwrite things. But you want to be careful of that because not everybody likes to read your handwriting. So I prefer printed things. Page 63. A dealer asked me the other day in class, he said, is there a single system that'll work? He said, it seems like all these things got all these pieces to them. There is no single system that works. The answer is no. You need all these different pieces. To kind of give you an idea how this works, if you haven't pieced this together, out on the lot, you collect a name and number. Or at the gas station, you collect a name and number. I don't care if it's on the back of a business card, a 3x5 card, or a scratch sheet of paper. You need to get a name and address and phone number. You're not going to carry your planner out there on the lot with you. You're certainly not going to tuck a computer under your arm. So you're going to have a method of collecting the names and numbers. 3x5 cards are great. The back of a business card is great. It doesn't matter. You're not going to have your whole system with you all the time. That's not practical. Then logging the contact information. Okay, so I got all these names and numbers in my pocket. At some point, I got to sit down with my planner, and I'm going to use a planner and a computer because the planner is a lot quicker for a lot of things. If I just talked to Bob on the lot and he said he's going to be in on Thursday, I can go sit down with my planner, and I can log it in Thursday. I'll turn over to Thursday my planner, write Bob at 9:15, and shoot, I better get that car cleaned up at 8:30, so clean up stock number 2112. I'm going to use a double system, a double entry system, because it makes sense, and I'll explain it as we go. But I'm going to log everything into my planner. I'm going to log my tracking information in my planner. I'm going to use the scratch sheet of paper as the first gathering tool. I'm going to use my planner as my second stage, and I'm going to use my computer as the third stage. I'm going to have the computer and the planner working together as kind of a backup program. I don't want to sit down and, if your computer's at home, you can't use it at work. If it's a big desktop and you got it at home and the kids are playing with it, your computer isn't at work, but you need a system at work to keep up with everything. So I've got all this, and I'm going to log it in my planner, and then I'm going to take my planner and log everything in my computer. So I've got a double entry system here, just in case one doesn't get entered somewhere. And again, planners are a lot better for some things than computers, and 3x5 cards are better than some things. Number 3 down here, it says enter everything into your master list. And there's a caution down there, and I see this happen all the time. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make. It says caution. Don't confuse all this logging and entry activity with selling stuff. This is gopher stuff. This is piddly work. It has to be done, but a lot of people sit down and they play with their computer all day and they log things and they search through their list and they pull up lists everywhere, and they're tired after 6 hours and they haven't made a single contact. Don't confuse activity with accomplishment. You can sit there and play on your computer all day if you're not careful, especially with computers that do graphics and charts and everything else like ours does. Don't sit around playing that thing all day. Get it in there quick, and get to work. Why 3 systems? Because you need them all. Page 64, let's look at 3x5 cards. 3x5 cards, let's talk about what they're best at. Page 64. You got a sample 3x5 card on the next page. Let's look at what they're best at. The top of the page, 3x5 cards are best for working prospects. That's the best use of a 3x5 card. The reason I like that, and if you're using our planners and our phone book together, there's a page in the back that holds 20 3x5 cards. The only thing I personally dislike about a 3x5 card file system is that box that you have to carry around. I've dropped it too many times. And it's inconvenient, and it slides off when you're carrying all your stuff to your car. I like 3x5 cards, so in our telephone book, if you've got that and you've got that part of the planner, then it's got this holder back there in the back of them, and you're not normally working with more than 20 working prospects at a time. If you are, get another page, and now you've got 40. But with a working prospect card, I like them because at the beginning of the day, I go in, and the first thing I do is go to work a few minutes early, like we said. I dump my working prospect box, and I go through every one of these cards. Now, if you're using a computer, you can also print a list of your working prospects. But the first thing you'll want to do every day is go through all your working prospects. You want to look at everything. See if this guy might have been trading an old car in, and I look through all of my prospects. And get everybody's name and number, log them. Every time you make a contact, make a note, and you keep them on that, and ours come with NCR cards. You tear off a copy, give it to your manager, or you tear off a copy and give it to the person who's inputting the name in the computer. From the 3x5 card, their name goes into the computer. Now you got to have a system. Either you've got a 3x5 card box, like on the next page, or you're using that page in the planner. Now, a lot of people don't have computers, and they want to keep up with a sold customer list. You can also use a 3x5 card for that. It's a slow way to do it. I don't know why you'd want to, but you can do it if you want to. After you sell this car, we took it from a working prospect, and I finally sold Bob and Betty a car. So now I fill out the rest of the prospect card, keep it in a box on your desk, ABC. And Bob Smith calls you 6 months from now. He says, you probably don't remember me. What was your name? Smith. And you pull it out, and you say, oh, yeah, I do. And your wife's name was Betty, and the kids' name were Judy and Johnny. And if I remember right, the dog's name was Fido. And he said, whoa, how do you remember that stuff? I took a memory course. Actually, it's right there on my 3x5 card. And you need to log everything on that. So you can keep that on your desk. If you notice on the side of our cards, there's a 2-year calendar. And if you're going to contact them by phone every 90 days, you just thumb through all these things every day. And if it's been 90 days since a contact, it's time to call. And again, that's a slow way to do it. You also need to contact them by mail. So you're going to, somewhere you got to get a list printed up. Maybe you print it up one time, run it off on labels if you don't have a computer. Picture of a 3x5 card box on the next page, and a 3x5 card if you've never seen one. It's real handy, name, address, phone number, city, state, zip. It's also good, and if you're not using ours, there's a thing on there that says buying motive, and it says space, safety, performance, appearance, comfort, economy, and dependability. And we talked about this on phase 1. I want to circle what it is because I'm going to work with this guy for a long time, and it may be a month before he comes back in. I hate to forget his buying motive. I want to remember. I also want to source it. Remember, for our tracking purposes, was he a walk-in customer? Was he a repeat customer? Was he an outside prospect? Was it a turn I took from Jim 60 days ago? You need to source the information. Picture of a card. I keep my 3x5 card box, if you're going to do it this way. If you're going to use an actual box, I keep it into call today, appointments, hot, medium, and cold prospects. If I'm keeping the pages in my planner, I'll have a page for hot prospects, medium prospects, cold prospects. You might have another page for appointments and to-dos. Using planners on page 66. Now, we've got 2 different planners, and I don't know which one you have. If you're watching this video, it's very likely that you have one of them or you have our computer system. Now, our planners are best used for, at the top of page 66, A1, planners are best used for working prospects too. If you don't want to use that 3x5 card, you've got a page in your planner for working prospects. It looks almost like a 3x5 card. Now, the only thing I dislike about the working prospect page in the planner is you have to transfer a name to the next month. Well, that's really not a big deal. You're talking about transferring maybe 10 names. Number 2, it's good for daily and weekly planning. You need to get a plan. You've got to have yourself organized. You want to know, remember a while ago we said if Bob Smith comes in, he's coming in on Thursday at 9:15? Well, I'm writing my daily plan every day. This is Monday, and I wrote in Bob's coming in at 9:15 on Thursday. So I've already planned Thursday starting Monday, and you work yourself through your planner. 3, you can also use a planner for sold customers. In the phone book section of your planner, it's got another calendar like it's on the 3x5 cards, and it's a 3-year calendar in there. All you have to do is circle it each time you talk to somebody. And you'll have to make notes somewhere else. Maybe you keep a page of notes in there. Number 4, it's great for a sold customer reference. Again, instead of that 3x5 card file box with A through Z, in your phone book, it says A through Z. And in one 3-ring binder, you can keep everything that matters to you in sales, and you can go home with it. And the planners also have your expenses and your charts and your monthly sales log and your monthly management reports and everything else. It's a couple pages from the planners. Page 67 is the working prospect page. And you can see there filled in from the examples. You want to circle their buying motive, you want to circle the source, and you want to circle the result. And again, you turn this in, and if you've got a computer or somebody using the computer for you, entering, you take the 3x5 card, give it to them, and have them type the information in. You've also, on page 68, got a typical day. It says at the top of the page there, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, and in the bottom right corner is your tracking information. Again, Bob would be in at Thursday at 9:15 or whatever it is. At 8:30, you need to get the car cleaned up. You're just planning your day as you go. The tracking information in the bottom, this will take you seconds a day to do this. At the end of the day, off that business card, you got names and numbers, You also need to write down how many walk-in customers you talk to, how many mail-outs you send out, how many responses you got, how many incoming phone calls you did, how many presentations, demonstrations, write-ups, sales, and money that you made. This is your tracking system if you're using the planners. It's quick and easy. It's a no-brainer. Page 69, setting up a computer system. Now, if you don't have a computer system and you're going to get one, let me just give you some tips on them. Page 69 at the top of the page. To manage your customer base using a computer. All computers are getting real easy to use, but I would still buy an Apple. There's a one-day learning curve on an Apple. There's about a one-week learning curve on an IBM. Now, they're both easy to use. Everything's getting easier to use. Our database works with either one. It doesn't matter to me which one you get. I still believe an Apple is an easier to use system. Number 2 down here, you need to get a printer. Now, there's 2 kinds of printers, fast and slow. If I was you, I'd go for fast. And there's a tip there on number 1 that says get a locking cable. Computers have a way of disappearing right under your nose there. All you do is blink and they're gone, especially a portable. And if I were going to use a computer and I was going to use it just for database management, things like that, I'd probably get a portable, a notebook, or a sub-notebook so I could carry it around with me. Throw it in your briefcase, take it home, take it to work, so that you have all of your information with you. With computers, another tip, you need to back these things up regularly. It's no fun when all of your information disappears one day. And you get that little sad face when you try to turn it on. It's a common thing. Get a locking cable, back up your computer. Number 3, set up a database. And if you buy a computer nowadays, most computers come with programs already in them. You don't even have to spend much extra money. The computer is already loaded with either Microsoft Works or Claris Works or one of those Works programs, which is really 4 or 5 programs built in. You can do mail merge, you can write letters, you can set up a database, you can do spreadsheets, you can do charts and graphs. You don't have to buy a system like ours. Ours is just pre-done and it's industry specific and it'll do the tracking and everything for you. If you enjoy putting together one, do it yourself. But you need one. Number 4, you need to get everybody's name and address in there. And again, I wouldn't suggest you do it. I'd suggest you farm that out to somebody else that knows how to type, has got some extra time on their hands. Pay the receptionist to stay late and do your names in there for you. Get your wife or your husband to do them. Get some high school kid to do them for you after school. Pay them $2 or $3 an hour. They'd be happy to do it. Or take it down to a secretarial service. Have them enter the names for you. Give you back your computer. Number 5, send everybody on your database, in your database, something every 45 days. You need to manage this list. We've been talking for all these tapes about putting together a mailing list, building this master list. Whether it's in a computer or a card file or in a planner, you got to start managing this. They need to hear from you every 45 days. That'll be the common theme throughout your master list. If you're using our computer system on page 70, that just explains what it's designed to do. Here's some of the primary focuses of it. There's some tips in here on page 71. In fact, whether you're using ours or setting up your own, this is kind of what you'd like to see on a screen. You need a daily planner, and our planners and our computer systems are meant to kind of merge together. But if you're setting up your own, you want a daily planner. You need a calendar of events. You need your to-do list, like they're on the bottom left. And you would rate your to-dos by priorities. They're on the left, A, B, or C. And you check them off when they're done on the right side of the to-do list. You need a place for appointments, top right. You definitely want to log all of your appointments in the computer. And if Bob says, I'm not going to be there on Thursday, like I said, then you reschedule it. There's a button there to reschedule it. And your mail-out's the same thing. And over to the right of mail-outs, there's a little phone there. That means if you click that, then you log your phone appointments. But this is meant to manage your day. That's what this is for. On page 72, I keep talking about the preferences file to set up your scripts. Well, if you have our system, you go into the preferences, you set up your scripts for follow-up, sold follow-up, unsold follow-up, and your prospecting notes. Now, there's my idea of how often these things should go out in there, and you can change that. Any of these things you can alter, you can write a new script. But it's kind of handy when you're making that first follow-up call, you pull up that script there, and on the screen it tells you what to say. And whether you're using ours or not, you can do that in any computer. Just get you a database and type in screens, or a regular program. Page 73. This is a lot like a contact card. You've got a contact record, and you've got the customer information on the left, and you have your prospecting information on the right. And that little card file box down at the bottom keeps up with notes, with follow-up that's due. All you do is click on that tab, and it tells you the follow-up, your current vehicles, and what they bought. That's kind of handy to know that, too. This is like a 3x5 card file box on your desk. On the next page, you have your purchase history on each product. Now, if you're setting up your own database, you want to set up the cars that you've sold to these people. This is automatic in our system. On the top right up there, it lists the cars that they've purchased. It tells you how many you've sold to this family, and it tells you how much you've made on each, or the total. If you click on any one of them, like the last one down there, it pulls up the picture of the Camaro and tells you all the information about the sale on the Camaro. And you'd want to type in some transaction notes there if there was anything specific to this purchase. The next page is your activity report. Page 75, and you can go back and look at these later. You want to track this too, whether you're using our system, a planner, or a scratch piece of paper. You want to keep up with the number of people you talk to, the number of presentations, demonstrations, write-ups, sales. What's nice about a system like this is you end up at the end of this column over here, it tells you your value per contact, your average earnings per type of contact, your closing ratios per type of contact, your total and your total earnings. And then it breaks it down for you at the bottom. Your closing ratio on total was 40, your demo ratio was 50, and your write-ups was 73%. Tells you value per contact, and it breaks it down. Contact, demo, write-up, and delivery. As a salesperson, I want to know all that information so that I know who to focus on. We're talking about prospecting. This tells you who to prospect with. It tells you your most productive customer. It's just like if you look at the closing ratios there on walk-in traffic, it's about 16%. It's even a little higher than we've been talking about, but look at the closing ratio on a repeat customer. It's 63%, which is better. Now, if you're going to prospect, should you go out and prospect and stand on the lot and talk to a stranger, or find you some more repeat customers? Common sense. And your vouchers go along with it. Page 76 is some charts that are in our planner. They'll chart and track everything that you're doing. They'll track your earnings, they'll track your closing ratios, anything else you need to track by month or by year. In fact, you can even pull up projections for the year. A lot of information. And again, whether you're using a 3x5 card, a planner, a computer, whether it's our computer, somebody else's computer, somebody else's planner, you got to get organized. And that means your homework after this tape is to get your system set up. What will you use? 3x5 cards, the file box on your desk. You're going to use planners. If you've already been through phase one of this thing, you've already got planners. Now, it's a safe bet that about half the salespeople didn't use them because management didn't make them. And you can pick up some extra planners from them. Or get the computer system. Somehow get your system set up. I hope in the beginning of this, and you might want to go back and play the beginning again, and get comfortable with the lists. You still probably need to make those lists we talk about. Get down to the 3 lists, the 3 things on each one, by mail, by phone, in person. This is really important now because we're winding down here. We've got one more section. In the next section, we're going to talk about how to follow up each one of the groups. Sole customers, working prospects, orphan owners, service customers, tent sales and auto shows, and everybody else. So get your system together, start getting everything organized, and I'll see you on the next tape. Till then, you guys have a great day.
That's the Welcome to the Joe Verdi program, How to Follow Up and Prospect. In this series, Joe is going to